Well, hey folks, it's Ken with the Model Building and Retirement Channel. Thank you for tuning in. So we're loading up the transport here, getting ready to do some model shows coming up. We've got 3 shows on the way. And I'm also going to show you how I built this hauler. This is the Revell Auto Transport Trailer. A fun build, and also I'm going to talk about the upcoming shows we're going to be going to right after the intro. We're out behind the garage here on the tarmac loading up the cars. It's a beautiful fall day here, early September in Ohio. It doesn't get any better than that. The only thing we could do, we could actually use some rain. I usually don't ask for that, but in this case I know we need it. So anyways, I got a couple of the cars loaded up there. I'm definitely going to take the 72 Mach 1, and I'm going to take the 68 Dirt, and 4 other cars unloaded already. Unfortunately, I can only take 6 cars at a time, but we got some shows coming up here, so I needed to get that trailer built. But before I show you how I built this trailer, I just want to talk about the upcoming shows. I plan on attending 3 of them here in the very near future. So the very next one is, geez, less than 10 days away. On September 20th, 2025, I'll be attending the Shenango Valley Auto Scale Modelers number 40. SVASMCon 40 is the acronym for that, and that is near Sharon, Pennsylvania, and it's brought on by the IPMS group, and it's a local show, so I do plan on going to that one. That one's only 40 minutes away or so, and I'll have a flyer up, by the way. I'll have their flyer up on the screen here, so take a look, and if you want to pause to get a good look at that, go ahead. Okay, then the next one up, a little bit of a drive for us. We'll be going to Detroit, Michigan on October 19th, 2025 for the Detroit Area Auto Modeler Show. The plan is to attend that one for a day. I think that one's on a Sunday, 9 o'clock in the morning if I'm not mistaken. I'll probably be getting there the night before so that I'm there bright and early in the morning. Hoping to meet and greet some of you guys there. And once again, I'll have their flyer up on the screen. Once again, feel free to pause. And then finally, the big show local to me is going to be the Cleveland Model Show on November 2nd, 2025. And that flyer will be up on the screen as well. Definitely hoping to see some of you guys and my fellow content providers at some of these shows. And I'll tell you what, show your support. I got the new merch line out. It's a store right below the screen there somewhere above the description is a store icon, and I got all kinds of stuff. I got hats and hoodies and bags and stickers and all kinds of different things. So show your support and wear one to the show so I'll know who my fans are. And I'll wear one too so I'll be easy to spot. Anyways, looking forward to meeting you guys at those upcoming shows. I hope to see you there. And let's get into the build of the model kit here. It was a lot of fun to build, so let's get into it. Okay, so it's time for something different here. This time I'm gonna build a semi-truck and trailer, and specifically auto transport trailer by Revell 1/25 scale. So this is gonna be this video, but it's gonna be pulled by a vintage Kenworth K123 cab over, which will be in another video, but these will be a matched up pair here. This one's going to be really interesting. I got a paint scheme in my mind, red, white, and blue, stars and stripes, and all kinds of cool stuff that I plan on experimenting with on that. So I can't wait. But right now we'll concentrate on the trailer. We'll get this unboxed here and take a look and see what we got. Okay, so start out with a whole bunch of, let me get a light up here. Start out with a whole bunch of tires, 18 probably to be exact, right? 18-wheeler. No, probably not 18 because that includes the truck too. Anyways, we've got trailer tires. Boy, they look real nice. They're like rubberized. They look realistic. Nice little tread on them. I'm not going to unbag them right now. Then we get this tangled mess here. This is a bunch of little tubing to go with all the hydraulics. So quite a bit of detail there. And then this nice little glimmering chain is going to be used for chaining down the cars. I'm not going to pretend I know what everything is because I'm not big into trucks here. You know, it'll be my first truck build. Okay, getting some nice chrome plated wheels. Okay, then we get, for the most part here, tread. And I'm going to go with a really bright silver paint here. Not chrome, but it's going to just be a really bright silver on all the treads. And then I'll weather that down a little bit for the tires and whatnot that go across it all the time. Some more tread. Give you instructions. And being a Revell kit, that's a plus because you know the instructions are going to be better. So, okay, as in their typical fashion, they give their recommended colors. And they have a part name for every piece on the sprue, which helps a lot. Yeah, nice step-by-step instructions here. I think it's going to help a lot, keep me from, you know, getting lost on it. I'll definitely be paying attention to instructions, which I rarely do on my models. And it's occasionally come up to bit me if I not. Yeah, this is going to come in handy quite a bit. Okay, very good. Okay, so after looking it over carefully, I decided to tackle it kind of like I do my cars, where I'm going to assemble sub-assemblies that will be the same color. So, like in this case, this here is going to be the main frame of the truck. I'm either going to go red or blue, and then the silver parts will be, you know, sub-assembled separately. And, you know, we still have to touch up. For example, there's leaf springs here that'll be painted black or whatnot, but that's what I'm going to do. So this build's going to be a little different for camera purposes. I'm not going to show me actually gluing everything together. And I'm also not going to show the painting, the main painting, because that's all going to be done with rattle cans of various colors. But I will explain in every scene what I'm going to do or what I just did. Kind of brief you on that. And that'll keep the video a little shorter, you know. Otherwise, I think this could be a three-hour video, maybe 4 hours. We don't want a video that long. So let me get this sub-assembly started and I'll be right back. Okay, so it's a good thing I kind of cleaned my workbench off here because this is going to be quite long. Had to glue these together right here at the joint where they're clamped together. And next up, you got all these cross members. So I'll get those on and I'll be right back. Okay, got the main frame all painted or put together, glued and painted. Not cured yet, but this is just Duplicolor red. Okay, so gonna just let that one hang over to the side and cure for a little while because I've got a problem that I'm gonna share with you. Okay, so unfortunately I discovered a problem with this kit and there's not much I could do about it. You know, it's a re-release that's already aged and it's 5-hour drive away from where I bought it. But I know, I don't, how I missed this when I was doing the unboxing, I'll never know. Remember, this was sealed in a bag. But I noticed on this runner right here, there's a big hole in it. And the corner's eaten away. That caught my eye first. But how I did not see this stuff up here, I don't know. But this and this are supposed to be identical. And this are supposed to be identical. So it looks to me like, you know, when this was in the mold, they either ran out of sprue plastic or machine clogged or something happened or it overheated, who knows what, and their QC didn't find it. And also this one was loose in the bag and I figure out why, because it's the match to the center one here. And since the sprue apparently ran out or the plastic didn't flow out here, it didn't even make it to the sprue. It didn't finish the pieces. So it is what it is. I'm going to do some patchwork on it. And I like to have a story behind every time you have to modify something. So here's the story for this trailer. The original owner, trucking owner, who bought the trailer had a massive car fire. And these are aluminum treads. His fire got so intense that it literally melted the treads. And they're in different parts of the trailer, so evidently this fire spread to another car or something and caught fire and melted that tread too. So it went to auction and the present owner you know, as frugal as he could be. He said, man, this is like a brand new trailer, but it's got damage. So he bought it at auction for a heck of a good price, just pennies on the dollar. And he just welded a lot of repair parts into it. And that's what I'm going to do. At least I'm going to attempt to. And it ain't going to be pretty. I'm going to make it look like it's a repair. So I got some evergreen scale models, plastic styrene. In this case, I got 3 sheets of 20 thousandths thick. I think I have some more somewhere of different thickness too. I'll look. But I'm literally going to patch this all up. It isn't going to be pretty, and I'm not going to be able to match the diamond pattern 100%, well, if at all. But I'll come back and show you what I did with that. Stay tuned. Okay, so I got all the parts prepared for the next part of the sub-assembly for the bottom of the trailer. And I did change it up a little bit from what I originally planned. So the center walkway with the diamond plate, that I did go with silver with, but the treads where the cars are actually going to drive up on, I went with a dark satin matte blue Duplicolor primer paint, which incidentally, you know, it's cheap paint, and for an industrial purpose like this, I went with it. But the guys that, you know, I see a lot of cars out there, like on Facebook, that have really lumpy, bumpy, textured paint jobs. And I can only assume it's this kind of paint here, because the model paints like Tamiya testers, they spray, in my opinion, a much finer spray. Yeah, they cost more and they don't have as much in the can, but this stuff sprays on inconsistent, lumpy dumpy, and these are very light coats. I mean, I didn't film it, but very light dust coats, and it varies from can to can. Like the red, it went on a little bit smoother, but the blue went on really textured, and I'm okay with it. This is an industrial setting, but just wanted to comment to the modelers out there that are using the Duplicolor paints is, you know, you're paying $35, $40 for a model, or maybe you go to the Hobby Lobby 40% off sale and save a few bucks, and then you're saving a whole bunch of money on your paint, but coming up with a horrible paint job. So, you know, you might want to rethink that and buy a better paint. So, anyways, now as far as the damaged pieces where the plastic did not flow, I said I was going to do that like a patchwork. So it's sort of like an industrial looking patch job. I mean, not extremely pretty, but it's what, in my opinion, it's, you know, what a guy would have done. He would have taken some scrap plate around his shop and welded it into position just to make it safe. And that's what I did. So, and then I painted them. So I saved the model, you know, and it's got a little bit of a, I guess you could call it patina repair work now. So anyways, I'm going to get this all assembled. Also, it's calling for all these reflectors to be put all throughout the frame of the trailer. So I'll be back. I'm going to install all those, and I'll glue this sub-assembly together, and we'll be back for the next step. Okay, so far everything's going together fairly nicely. You know, this is a reissued kit from 2019. So the mold is a little bit worn out. So you do have to drill out some holes with your pin vise. I'll have a picture up above there, but that's typical with a lot of models. Another tip for you is when you put the center section in, keep in mind that the red pieces were joined together here in the middle. So that's a weak point. Now, by the time you add this walkway and these pads or treads for the cars, that all is going to strengthen that joint. So make sure you get good glue going on there, and then clamp or weigh them down to keep everything aligned and bonded real well. And I'll have a picture there like how I weighed it down. But, you know, to get the front and back aligned and secured and reinforced, that's the best thing to do. Okay. Also, I painted the back axles, and I got all the little reflector decals on both sides. So she's coming along nicely. All right, so next up is the spare tires. So you take 2 of the tires, 2 of the rims, and 2 little trim rings on the back here, and they're going to glue right into this spot here. And then I used some Tamiya panel liner and just kind of brushed it on that tread to age it up a little bit, weather it down a little. And then there were some tools on the chrome tree and a pair of work gloves. I painted them butternut yellow to kind of look like, you know, the lighter leather work gloves. So pretty cool, pretty cool. All right, so I'm just going to glue these tires into place, spare tires. Also on the tire tread, I used a little NATO black to weather them up. And I'll probably weather these tires a little bit more because, you know, they'll be sitting on this trailer going through weather and everything. I doubt if they're going to be as clean as they look right now. Just a little super glue. Okay, and then I'm going to have to stop for now because the fenders I'm going to paint very nicely. So I use some MCW dark blue metallic, and I might even clear coat that because, you know, the fenders on a trailer, if a guy takes pride, they'll be nice and shiny, and so will the wheels and stuff like that. So kind of going for, this is not just a trucker, this is an independent trucker who takes care of his vehicle. All right, we will be back. Okay, so we got the rear fenders on, the rear treads on, and the ramps that attach between the fender and the bottom lowest section of the trailer. I suggest clamping them because it's kind of a spongy fit as it fits over the tire. Okay, so next up we're going to attach the front ramps assembly. So get that glued into position. I'll be right back. Okay, got the front ramps installed, and kind of same as the back. You just want to clamp them into place. There is one thing I want to point out a little bit. These two ramps here are called what's ramp F in your instructions, part identification. There's a little tab on the front of these that fit into a notch on this crossbar. And the tab was too big to fit into that notch. I'll have a picture above, maybe that'll help clear it up there. But what I did is before I attached that, I took my X-Acto knife and just kind of pushed down and peeled away both edges of that tab. Or you could file it away or whatnot, but it's very important to seat all the way up in there. Otherwise, these ramps would have nothing to be supported on because they're barely supporting on that bar. But if they were sticking out a little bit, they would fall through if you put a model car on there or something. So just wanted to pass that around. Okay, so on to the next step. All right, so next up is a whole series of little sub-assemblies. So it'll be rear bumper, which I painted with Tamiya clear red. And I'm waiting for my resin, ultraviolet resin, to come. I'm going to be hitting a little resin on the lenses and locking that in with the UV light, and that'll give it a nice little gloss dome look. And then these are the hydraulic ram and cylinders for the rear bumper attachment, so I'll get that taken care of and we'll be right back. All right, so I got a few of the sub-assemblies completed. This guy here is the little two-piece part here that's going to go to the back of the trailer somewhere. Then you got your landing gear. And you want to be careful because you got to glue these two pieces together, but yet you've got the landing gear, which can go up and down. And you want to make sure you don't glue that. Okay? Because even though it's not a toy, it can be staged in different ways. For example, the back bumper area too I'm working on. Got the decals on the back too now. But same thing here, you got to glue in this little side reflector lights. But you have to attach a hydraulic ram and this guy here. And that's going to make the difference with the upper deck. You know, if it's all transporting down the road, it's going to be staged one way. But if you want it to be staged like you're unloading a car at a dealership, then it's got to be staged another way. So it's real important to not glue these and make sure that they move really good. So I did not glue the parts, I just glued the little sides in. And then I used a little graphite lubrication, dry graphite, just a little bit right on the hinge area there, because, you know, you don't want this binding up when you do want to stage it, you know, because The whole model's still going to be delicate as all models are. But, you know, you may want to stage it one way or another. So I'm going to get these installed on the kit, and we'll be back shortly. Okay, so we ran into another snag on the kit here. The bottom has been all assembled here. You know, I think when I left you on the last section there, had the back bumper to put on there. That's on there. The landing gear has been installed. But, so we're ready to start on the second tier. And here's what we run into. You know, this whole second tier support system is pre-drilled here with holes on the bottom. Okay, so these little red arms that you see on the kit, those are supposed to have little metal tabs, pins that would go into these pins for structural support when you glue that together. You know, this is going to go about like this, but it doesn't have them. And I checked my sprue to see if I accidentally cut them off or anything, but no, the sprue is clean. It just didn't have them. So I'm going to fix that problem by pinning them. So I went out and I got some little brass rods. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill out these little red supports, and I'm going to insert a little pin in there, and that pin will be glued into there and glued into here, and it'll probably be stronger than the plastic that the kit was supposed to have. So I'm going to get to working on that, and we'll be back. So let me kind of demonstrate what I'm doing here to repair that pinning situation. So I'm using my little pin vise and a little drill bit, 1/16 drill bit, that's the same size as the brass rod that I'm going to use. First I did a pilot hole with a much smaller little bit, just to get that started. Now I'm honing it out with the 16th. So what I'm going to do now is take these little brass inserts, going to get a little dot of glue inside that hole, insert these pins. I'll trim them once they're all in. I'll trim them down to where they're only sticking out about like less than 1/8 of an inch, and then they'll be able to pin into those silver uprights like so. So that's what I'm trying to do. Hope that explains it better for you. Okay, so I got the first set of uprights on with the pinning. That worked really, really well. It's just CA glue, super glued in. Probably better than the kit would have ever been. Hey, I want to show you something that's coolest thing since sliced bread. The advancement on model building is just incredible. But I got this idea from Matt at Matt's Model Works, and I'll put a link in the description of his YouTube channel. But he just did an episode on this using UV resin with a UV light for lenses. And I gotta tell you, this just came in from Amazon like within the hour, and I'll have a link for this in the description along with every other product that I use. Just took a little toothpick, put a little fluid on there. Well, first I colored it with Tamiya Clear Red, just covered the lens, let that dry, and then I put the resin on there with the toothpick, and it's almost like a liquefied gel. So as you just add it, it kind of domes up like this as long as you're vertical. And then there's a little UV light that you put on there for like 2 minutes, and it totally cures it. But darn it, that's the coolest darn thing. Like right here, I don't know if you could see it, that is just Tamiya Red with no resin. This side has the resin added. And just to show you, you know, how nice that came out, this is what the lights look like. It's just molded in lights. Let's see here. Right here. If you look at that, it's just a molded in light, so there's no detail. I mean, it has a little detail in it, but a little Tamiya red and a little resin. And the cool thing about the resin is you can actually mix up a little color with it and cure it together. But it looked good to me that I just did the red followed by the resin. In fact, I'll demonstrate that for you on the next scene. I'll show you how to do these. Be right back. Okay, so now you could mix your clear red with your resin, but I don't think I need to do that because what I did on the back, I did not do that and it looks great. So anyways, I get a little bit of clear red on my little detail brush. And I just dab it on that light. Make sure I'm filling that inside area up. Okay, I'm going to let that dry up a little bit because that formed a dome in itself. And, you know, it will flatten out once it dries a little bit. And then I'll make the dome for the lens out of the resin itself. So we'll be back as soon as this paint dries up. Okay, so the resin kit bought off Amazon. And I think it's less than $15. I think that's a very valuable tool for your model building for that kind of price. And again, the link will be in my description. But this one's called Hone Curing UV Resin, Fast Curing Crystal Clear, Low Odor, Bubble Free, 200 grams. So let's open the box. I'll show you what you get in there. Now, I've already had this open, so it's not packed as neatly as it was. First, get this really nice sticky mat that comes with it. That'll come in handy for something. Then you get 2 bottles of the resin. That's just a high gloss crystal clear. So that'll last you probably a lifetime. Get you some little measuring cups. But you know, you can also use just little caps or whatever. And then you get the UV light, which has little legs on it. Now you can hold this by hand if you have something bigger and let the light beam shine on it, or you can just plug the USB in there and place it on a stand. Get this box out of the way. You know, you can just operate it that way. It looks like a little alien spacecraft there, but I'll tell you what, that is really cool. Thanks, Matt at Matt's Model Works for turning me on to the idea. I'm not sure where you got it from, but it's a valuable idea. You demonstrated it on your channel, and I knew I just had to have it right away. So shout out to Matt, guys. Watch his channel. Check him out. Okay, let's move forward. What I'm going to do is I put a little bit of resin in a cap. So I have a little bit of that resin just poured into a cap, and then I'm just taking a toothpick here. And I'm just dabbing it into that lens area. And it kind of builds, it has like surface tension, so it's kind of building almost what looks like a bubble on top. Okay, so it's kind of filled up and has a little dome to it. I don't know if you can see that much on camera. But the next thing you do is you'll put your little light on here, and this light has a button, so every time you press that button, you'll go from 60 seconds, 90 seconds to 150 seconds. And there's no real instruction that I found yet on this, so you know, I think the 150 seconds is probably the best way to go. Just make sure you're fully cured, or you can put it in sunlight. Now, you don't want to do this by a window where there's sunlight because it is UV. It'll harden up your glue before you're ready. So stand by here and I'll get this thing plugged into a USB port so we can turn it on. Okay, so you press it over there and then you press the button 1, 2, 3 times. That's the 150-second mark. And that'll actually just time itself out and the light will go out on its own. Okay, so the light goes out automatically. Now, of course, I edited out the whole 150 seconds. That doesn't sound like a lot of time, but if you're sitting there waiting and watching, it's like watching water boil. I didn't realize how long 150 seconds takes. Anyways, what happens now is that's all fully cured, and you have a nice little dome-like crystal clear lens. Let's see if I get you into the focus here. I think that's really cool. All right, got the other upright on. That pinning worked really good. I mean, I'm sure that is probably stronger than it ever would have been with plastic. So those were little brass rods. Okay, it looks pretty good. I'm sure we're not a square 100%, but it looks like you got some flexibility when you put your top pieces on here, so I don't think we'll have a problem. Okay, to the next step. Right, so next up is some of the front framework for the front set of ramp supports. It goes on this side of the trailer here, and here they are, plus there's the signage and decals. So I'm gonna get the decals installed, glue those together, and install them right on the front of the trailer, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so I got this whole front assembly done, and a few lessons learned there is, this is where you learn that you don't have things 100% square. So this whole section here, you know, is a U shape once you glue it all together. It pins and back from the back side of this post here, and then it's supposed to pin to this red cross member that didn't have a pin, just like the rest of the trailer didn't. So I fixed those two, but then I was all misaligned up front here. If I can get a picture of that. So what I ended up doing is I drilled and pinned here and aligned everything, and that added a lot of strength there. So I think we're good to go now. All right, so got the decals on, did the 3D resin, or the ultraviolet resin for the light here. That came out really nice. Okay, I'm able to finally move on. This one fought me a little bit. So moving right along, the next step was to get all these upper ramp assemblies, the sub-assemblies completed. So you have front and back hinges. Some of them only have one hinge. And the hinges are so that you can load and unload cars with your models. So I had to assemble those. Those match up to each one of the upper treads. And then I had to insert these little tabs here, 14 of them from the plastic tree, and attach little chains to them. So this comes with a big, like a 25-inch neck chain that's kind of scaled down. So you cut them into about 1 5/8 lengths. And now they talked about sewing with sewing string to attach this chain to the wire. Well, with my bad eyes and my fat fingers, that just wasn't going to happen. So what I ended up doing is I just cut these about 1 5/8 lengths, and I just dipped that little bit of chain into super glue and had my Instacure, this stuff, Instaset, had that ready with a little applicator. So what I would do is I would dip the chain, I would just lay it right over that edge, hit it with one of these little Q-tips, like a makeup, I think it's like a makeup Q-tip or something like that, and I would just dip that Instaset there and instantly glue that in. And then I laid the chain out in one dab of glue to kind of just hold it. So that just kind of makes it look like the cars were just freshly unchained. So the next step is to get all these installed onto the trailer itself. So I'll be back right after that. Okay, I'll tell you what, she's really starting to take shape now. So the whole top ramp assemblies are all installed. And some of them are on hinges. For example, you can open up here, and you can open up here to get to the bottom to be able to load a car. And then from the back one, you'll be able to load a car to the bottom deck too. So that's pretty cool. And these are just hinged right into these little crossbars, pin and holes. This one is glued for extra rigidity, so this one does not move. And this bar here is glued in, so that kind of keeps that whole frame from spreading out to where the ramps will fall off. So pretty ingenious the way they set that up. Now I am noticing, like with this Foose truck that I have here, that if I put it to the front, it's just slightly too tall. So I guess you gotta pick your models carefully. Probably a car would fit there because it's, you know, the truck sits a little bit higher, but you know. So if you're like planning on doing a bunch of, you know, if you want to buy 6 vehicles along with your kit, be careful, because if you bought 6 of the 53 Fords, it's going to probably sit too tall in places. So anyways, okay, next up. So this is the top back ramp assembly. And I wanted to stop here in case you want to build this model. A lot of little details and tips here, so listen up. First of all, don't make the same mistake I made. Is on this arm here, on the instruction page, it really wasn't clear. So it did not say do not glue this. So I glued this piece in, only to realize that these two guys here work with the back ram of that comes off the back bumper. So that was super glued together. I had to break the super glue. I really had problems. I ended up breaking the whole pin off. So I had to drill and repin the one. So don't make that mistake. But that aside, let me give you some tips here. First off, these 2 pins on the very front go into these 2 slots here on the trailer, and they're not glued because this whole back assembly's got a hinge. But I found that it just didn't, you know, the pins were barely long enough to hold it there. So even though it's not a toy, sometimes you might want to stage it with the ramp up or down. So I just installed a little extra piece of wire pin here, smaller diameter, just to keep it from falling out of the hole. Okay, so that's one thing. 2 is this cylinder piece and this piece here that travels up and down the back of the trailer. Once again, I'll show you here. Those go inside of these things. So they have to be functional. They have to move up and down. So make sure you sand them real good, sand off your paint. And then I lubricated these. What I use for any plastic parts that have to move together, I use a powdered graphite lubricant. This is like one of the, you know, you can usually find it in the lock section. It keeps locks working smoothly. But it's a graphite powder, and I'll coat it on there, and it makes things super slick. Because you don't want to use oils or greases or any petroleum products. You know, that does not work with plastic. So I use a little graphite like that. Now, assembly is going to be tricky too. One other thing too is these 2 little ramp extensions back here. So again, this is the top rack. So when it's installed on the truck, if you're wanting to unload cars, you'll add this extra ramp here. So these guys go in here, but they're very delicate. So from behind, I just lightly super glued them because they got very small tabs that just glue in the spot here. So all this is very fragile. So now to assemble this to the back of the semi, you gotta feed these 2 pieces in and these 2 pieces in, and then the 2 top pins into the top frame of the truck. So it's a little, it's pretty fragile. One other tip is there are these little, in an upcoming step, whether this is up or down, you're going to have these little notches here. So the 4th notch down will get pinned in the upright position when you're like in travel position, if that makes sense. So what I did is I drilled these out with a larger drill bit and also on the truck, so that fits loosely to allow for fitment and alignment, just to make that a little easier. You'll see a little bit later when I show you how, once it's in the truck, I'll re-demonstrate that. But just another important little tip. So once again, a lot of fragile little things and some good little tips here. So let me get this assembled on the truck and I'll be right back. Okay, so we got that top rear ramp section installed. Like I said, very tedious getting these cylinders fed in first before you put your front hinge in. So these 2 top pieces have to feed into the bottom pieces on both sides, and then you lightly spread these front braces on top to stick that pinned hinge area. Now there's a pin that's holding this and the holes. I drilled the 4th hole down nice and loose so that my pin would work. And once again, I had to use the chain. Now the chain was once again talking about using string. Well, I can't tie little string and get string through there. But what I did use is I have this little solder wire, very thin wire. So I was able to loop the pin. If you look here. So that pin is tied to the chain with this little solder wire, and then I use a little dab of super glue and Instaset to lock that into place. But I'll show you, I'll remove the pins. Very finicky, but you remove the pins, you very carefully manipulate these cylinders down. And then you would attach your extra ramp for driving a car up in a parking lot. Okay, so it's very fragile, not meant to be a toy, but it's meant to stage A or B, whichever way you want. I wouldn't recommend playing with it all the time because things will wear out and break on you. All right, I just wanted to show you that. It went together well. I think it's looking good. All right, onward we move. I just want to show a couple other modifications I made. If you remember in the last episode, or the last segment there, just a minute ago, 30 seconds ago for you, I said I drilled out the 4th hole for this elevated ram here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I tried to fit a car in there, and this was tilted down too far. So I actually raised it so all 4 pinholes are exposed, and I just drilled a new hole right through there on both sides, and that raised this enough where you can shove a car in and out of there. So wanted to show you that. And then I had a little bit of chain left over, so I thought, what the heck, you know, they got these cylinder rams here that are dummy. You know, they got pins in them too for these cylinders that would go up and down. I thought, what the heck, I'll just make a little bit of hook. So I made that out of piano wire and just hook my little chain there. Just a little something to use up the chain. Okay, so next is going to be the brakes cylinders on the bottom of the truck. All right, so next up is going to be the trailer air brakes. And I painted those with Tester's rubber black, or black rubber, I'm not sure what it's called. Looks pretty good. So they go back here toward where the wheels are going to go. So I'm going to get those glued in. We'll be right back. Okay, so we got the air brakes installed. There's 4 of those back there. And then next up is going to be the hydraulic lines with the distribution blocks. So let me show you what I'm doing here. Go to the instructions. So the instructions gives you a template on how long to cut your hoses. A through N identifies all your hoses. And then your little distribution blocks have a little map on where they're going to go. So I made a little mark on mine, and the instructions show to glue the block into place first, and then attach all the hoses. So what I did is I marked little marks under the distribution blocks and did those hoses outside the model. You know, I have my bench under my magnifier, and what I did is I'll have a picture above there, but I used a little toothpick to widen the end of the hose a little bit so it'll fit on the little narbs, and then I slid them on, and just a little dab of super glue on each one of those with Instaset, and then I glued the block onto the trailer. So hoses are all supposedly measured correctly, and they're just dangling now. So the next step is I have to route them, and the instructions show where to route every one of these hoses. So I'm hoping that my idea there is a time saver and doesn't come back to bite me, but I couldn't see my fat fingers being able to attach all those hoses, because the hoses are very soft and the narbs are, you know, almost bigger than the hose, so it's really tough. I mean, I was considering cutting those off and drilling them out with a little piano wire. I thought that might be easier, but I got it done. However, where they're gonna go is a different story. Just take one for an example. Okay, so one of them needs to go here on this cylinder, but there is no pin to attach the hose to. And that seems to be the case for most of these hydraulic cylinders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little tiny piece of piano wire and insert it into the ends of each one of these hoses. For example, there's an end of a hose right here. So I'll put a short little piano wire with like a less than an 1/8 inch sticking out, and then I'm going to carefully, I hope I'm not making you dizzy with the camera, I'm going to carefully drill out with the tiny drill bit, 30 thousandths diameter drill bit, each cylinder, and then I'll dip that pin with the hose attached to it into super glue and just push it into the hole. So that's my plan. I'm going to get all that done off camera, and we'll come back and see how that worked out. Okay, so I've got all the hydraulic lines ran. Pretty tedious work. Word of warning though is they barely give you enough of this hose. So at first I ran my hoses to the main cylinders on the outside here, and I drilled and pinned a little piece of piano wire into these cylinders. I'll show you another one here. So that I could attach the hoses. And then to the controls on the other side here. Tilt this over a little bit. So when it comes down to the controls there, I was running low on the hose, so I kind of just ran them to whatever. So don't critique me if you're a hydraulic expert, because it probably doesn't run right because I don't have the hoses routed in the right direction, but they're routed. So anyways, all went together fairly well. I'm glad that I did attach all those hoses first before I put the blocks on. And you know, when I drilled out all these little cylinders, first I put my little piece of wire in my hose and then stuck the little piece of wire into the cylinders and glued them into place with some CA glue. So we are ready. Oh, and I got the tires installed. That all went well too. Tires do feel a little loose on the rims. So, you know, if you handle this thing, you're gonna have to watch. It may look like they deflated or something. They're just a little loose on the rims, so you kind of have to manipulate them around a little bit. All right, we are going to get this thing flipped around, and we'll do the full reveal coming right. So I've got the build all completed, so it's time for the big reveal. And I've already got a couple cars loaded on there. I got the Boss 302 loaded up on the bottom deck, as well as the Demon over here. And one thing I didn't cover on the model build is, if you notice here, I painted the chrome hydraulic shafts with Fusion Firm chrome. I just brushed that on. I thought that gave it a really nice look. Man, I love that product. Gives a nice chrome finish there. So really happy with the build. Now just be careful, you know, you can stage it with the top deck up or down, but it's very fragile. And once you get cars on it like this, it's very fragile. That's a lot of weight for a model. You know, the structure is just not all that strong. So be very, very careful if you're going to lift or move that. I would suggest probably unloading all the cars until you get it where you want it, and then load up all the cars. So anyways, let's get into a slideshow. Concludes the build of the Revell transport trailer. It was a lot of fun building that one. Pretty tedious. It was a challenge on my desk there. You know, I had to rearrange my workspace just to get that thing to fit because it's awfully long. And as you can see, it barely fit my diorama. Anyways, next up, we have to build something to go in front of the trailer. So it'll be this Kenworth K123 cab over, and this one's going to be unique. It's my next video. Going to do a multicolor paint scheme on this, red, white, and blue stars and stripes. So the highlight will be the paint job on this one, and it'll be my first tractor cab, so hopefully it goes well. Hopefully, you know, like I had to overcome a lot of issues with the trailer, but I did. I don't mind that. That's what modeling's all about. But yeah, so stay tuned. This will be coming up next after this video. And stay tuned too. There's going to be a major announcement about my channel coming up. We got some changes. We got some growth. Going to move into some areas that I haven't moved into yet. So I keep adjusting and growing with the time. So stay tuned. And thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate it.